Before I start this video, I just want to say that I am completely into collectability and rare things. I've already tried to film this video twice now just to try and articulate my point correctly and not get it misunderstood. I had a comment talking about one of my recent Spider-Man videos where somebody brought up the point of remaking Andrew Garfield's suit, and how because that suit is a Comic-Con exclusive, is it too much for us to ask LEGO to remake this figure, considering at this point it's a $12,000 figure, and I thought to myself that this warrants its own video, just to talk about the exclusivity of Comic-Con figures, the aftermarket of Comic-Con figures, and how I believe that Comic-Con figures are great in one respect and really stupid in another. Well, specific Comic-Con figures, and we'll get into that in a minute. First off, I want to address the comment. Do I think it's too much to ask for? No. No Way Home has been one of the biggest Marvel films of all time, and obviously we've talked about it a lot on this channel, considering we like Spider-Man so much, but when LEGO do come around to making sets for this, whenever it may be, Andrew Garfield, and therefore his suit as well, will have to be remade by LEGO's graphic designer team, and even though, yes, it will probably be a massively updated figure from that Comic-Con one, probably giving us dual-molded legs as well as printed arms, I think the important thing to look at here is desirability. Now, the reason, in my mind at least, how this figure could be one of the most sought-after Comic-Con figures that are possibly out there right now is all down to desirability. For most Comic-Con figures, you'll have a certain amount of desirability just because it is a Comic-Con figure, and then you'll have the additional desirability of who that Comic-Con figure is and what it represents. Now, specifically with this Andrew Garfield figure, the desirability is really high because of the suit that it represents. This is the only rendition of Andrew Garfield that we've ever received in LEGO form, therefore the additional desirability of depending on what figure it is through an all-time high, and now that will fluctuate the value because it's a more popular figure. And weirdly, the only people that this benefits are the people who own that original figure, because not only does it make it incredibly expensive for those original people who just want it because it's a Comic-Con figure, but also it being a Comic-Con figure ruins it for casual collectors who just want an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man figure. And this is a type of instance where I think a Comic-Con figure is not the right play. And this is why I don't think it's too hard to ask for LEGO to remake another one of these suits, just using an updated design, things like printed arms and dual molded legs. This means that original Comic-Con figure will still be desirable to people who want to collect Comic-Con figures, but there'll be a large majority of people who just want it because it's an Andrew Garfield figure to come away and just get the more accessible figure. And yes, for those of you who do own this figure, it will most likely devalue that figure because there'll be no longer a large quantity of people that only want this figure because it's Andrew Garfield. You'll now only be selling to people who want it because it's a Comic-Con exclusive, or the most dedicated of collectors that just wants to collect every version of one specific figure. And this is one aspect of Comic-Con figures which I really don't like, is when LEGO choose to make the main box art or poster suit the Comic-Con exclusive figure. For example, notice how a lot of other variants of Comic-Con figures are random variants, things like Deadpool Duck, the umpteen different variants of Batman in oddly coloured costumes. These are the Comic-Con figures which I believe do the best job in being a random figure that is still desirable, but also a good Comic-Con figure. The ones that I feel do the worst of this is the Marvel line, especially the Spider-Man ones. Now with Marvel ones, I feel like you do have some justifications. You've got things like the classic comic book Falcon, which again LEGO has given us another decent version of in the Marvel CMF, but it's a different version that was inspired from specifically that figure, so it still scratches that itch of having a comic book Falcon as a nice LEGO figure. There's also the Collector, which I do feel works as a Comic-Con figure, but it still borders that line of unacceptable in my opinion. He's enough of a background, enough character for me to warrant him being a Comic-Con figure, but it also would have been nice to see him in some form of set, and the fact that we couldn't because he's a Comic-Con version is just unfortunately very upsetting. Classic comic book Spider-Woman is another one of those figures which I feel works really well as a Comic-Con figure, considering that she hasn't got anything going on in terms of movie world right now, so LEGO really don't have the need to remake this suit, and if she did appear in some form of live action or TV show, the design will most likely be different from the comic book version just to give you some form of variance so you can make more toys out of it. But the worst offenders on this list are definitely the Andrew Garfield suit and the two PS4 Spider-Man suits from the PS4/PS5 games. Now I know the Miles Morales one wasn't technically a Comic-Con suit, but he still appears in this same sort of category for me, and it's just another example of LEGO using the main box art for a Comic-Con exclusive figure, which especially at the time was super relevant. and the only way to obtain this main suit from the game was to buy and win a Comic-Con figure, which again, it goes back to desirability. Now those people that wanted a LEGO Spider-Man Ps4 figure now can't get one because the only one available is a Comic-Con exclusive. This main box art suit, and it's the same with the Miles Morales one, should have been a limited run polybag or some form of high gift with purchase on Spider-Man sets, which by all means would definitely keep this figure in the rarer category, but bring the figures down to a more reasonable collector standpoint at about $100 to $200 per figure, rather than $1,000 to $2,000 per figure. And if you wanted to even do a Comic-Con exclusive figure from this game, you could even make something like Martin Lee, or the Anti-Ox suit, a variant of Spider-Man suit from that game, which is still really cool. It's just not the main box art, so people can still scratch that itch of wanting a PS4 Spider-Man suit that isn't some form of custom or knockoff, but people who still want a decent Comic-Con suit can still get a really nice figure. And it will still be desired from those fans who like the Spider-Man games, but as people will have scratched that itch of owning the Spider-Man suit, the desirability for things like that Anti-Ox suit won't be as high as something like the main suit from the box art. I think Comic-Con figures need to really balance out that desirability and make the figures not so obscure that nobody wants them, but not so desirable that every single person under the sun wants them, making the value artificially inflate because of the demand, therefore making them completely unobtainable because nobody wants to either sell them, or if they do want to sell them, they ask for ridiculous prices, like $12,000. But going back to the original question, do I think it's too much to ask for another amazing Spider-Man suit? Well, if I'm honest, I think at this point LEGO kinda have to. If they're giving us No Way Home sets, it's a no-brainer that that suit has to be included in some way, whether it's a variant with the lab coat on, or something along those sort of lines, or just an updated print. If No Way Home sets are happening, it's almost a guarantee that I could see him being in there, even though yes, the only other time LEGO has produced this figure has been a Comic-Con version. I do see them remaking this figure, and I also see them rethinking the entire Comic-Con structure on how they choose what versions of Comic-Con figures they make, because a film like No Way Home really does show that you can make a figure back in 2014 and it still get re-released in exactly the same way in 2022. And even then, we're forgetting about one of the crucial details about this whole fiasco. LEGO themselves. This is the first time that LEGO have had to remake the exact suit used on a Comic-Con figure, and like I say, although it's not in my mind too much to ask for, I also personally don't think that LEGO are going to care that much. LEGO have come out and stated that they don't really care about aftermarket value, and whether that's true or not is still yet to be discovered, but I guess we will find out whether they care about the aftermarket value after these No Way Home sets come out, considering that this figure might or might not be in these sets. But the thing is, LEGO isn't benefiting either from this figure being $12,000. Nobody's buying it directly from them for that much. So if anything, it would just make the sets more popular if Andrew Garfield's figure was included in these new LEGO sets. Because like I said before, a lot of people who wanted this Andrew Garfield figure would then just be able to get him in these new LEGO sets for a completely standard price. But the main point of this video was I wanted to understand what you guys thought. Hopefully I've explained the point well enough to the point where everybody understands, and let me know in the comments, do you think they should cancel these kind of Comic-Con figures? Do you think they should do more variants when it comes to Comic-Con figures? Or do you think that's fine where they are? And do you think they'll remake an Andrew Garfield suit in the new No Way Home sets? Let me know in the comments if you want to see my dream No Way Home wave. You can click the screen now and that will show you exactly what I would want out of a No Way Home wave.